you don't mind, let's have
Here we
you.
go. It is June 1st, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we're going to talk about rumors leading up to WWDC, WWDC itself. Yes, we've got more to talk about there. AirPlay 2 finally launching, and maybe some stuff about Nintendo, and if we've got time, some stuff about VR as well, because Lori and I did a VR hangout, because
What?
this is the iMore Show. Joining me this week is steadfast and true Lori Gill. Hi, Lori.
How are you?
I am just excellent. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. I wish that we were back in VR. It's so much cooler than real life.
It is. I felt so cool there. Joining me, of course, as well, is, oh no, Serenity Caldwell, who looks very sad that she didn't join us in VR. Do you have an Oculus Go?
I don't have an Oculus Go, but now you're making me want
You
one.
should
It
go
sounds-
get one so you can hang out. It was so much fun.
It is. You
my
can play.
wallet.
You can play like a game. Like they have this Oculus Room section where you just literally like VR, sit with your friends at a table and play games together.
And
Music playing in the background and everything.
or a show or whatever, and then you could be in the front. Yeah, it's really cool. But we got to wait to talk about that. This is, of course, the iMore Show. This is kicking things off. Let's I think we should start with WWDC, and then we can talk about some of those rumors that happened. First of all, we published our what we want to see post.
We did. We published it yesterday. So if you're curious about what iMore is hoping to see and expects to see from the show next week, you can find that on imore.com. I think it's up in one of those fancy little hero boxes at the top of the site.
Excellent. Yes.
We'll also link it in the show notes.
Absolutely. And we talked about that a little bit last week, sort of what we hoped to see. And I think we went into more detail in that article. What, because the both of you are going to be on the ground there. So can you talk about, I think people really like to hear about gear bag stuff, about preparation, about what you're planning. So would both of you care to share sort of where your mind is and what you're doing as you're going into things?
Serenity, I think you should kick that one off.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is my 7th WWDC, I think, starting in 2011, and my 4th WWDC covering the show. And my first as a pass holder, which is really exciting.
I know, I'm so excited. I want you to tell me all about all the things that you get to go sit in on. I'm so excited about that for you. That's so great.
Yeah, can I be honest? The one thing that I'm actually looking forward to is the Women in Tech meetups, the women's breakfast at WWDC, because those have always been like, everybody talks about them as a highlight, and it's really nice to be able to meet fellow ladies in this sphere. And I feel like they do it in a very classy way. It's not like, look at all of the women, aren't they amazing? It's more just like, oh yeah, we work in tech and we also happen to be ladies. So let's chat about tech stuff and not so much about the fact that we're ladies. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the fact that Kayla Innes is going to be there and is going to run a boot camp for us lowly WWDC engineers and attendees. And oh man, I feel out of shape already going into that. For people who don't know who Kayla Innes is, she's a fairly famous like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube celebrity who does these crazy fitness videos. My friend Alicia is obsessed with her, which is how I heard her name. And when I heard that she was going to be on the ground at WWDC, I was like, oh, this is really cool. So that leads me directly into packing for WWDC and prepping for WWDC. Normally, my gear of choice is kind of like a quick carry-on. I use a radar bag from my roller derby side because it's a big backpack and it basically is like a backpack duffel bag and I can shove everything in there. It's an amazingly versatile bag for that kind of stuff. And then I also carry a little Osprey day pack, which is actually sitting right next to me, so I can show it off with the Looney's case next to my AirPods, of course, because I can't forget my AirPods. And I tend to use the big bag for clothes and necessities, but the little bag I have chock full stuff of electronics, and it's basically everything I think I might need at the show. 2 watches and 2 iPhones because of course you want to install beta software and you don't necessarily want to install it on your primary device, at least not beta 1. Beta 1 can be real buggy, real buggy. I have been the horrible person who does that the last 2-3 years. But I do that full well knowing that it might brick my device. Like I go into it basically being like, I'm probably gonna not have a workable phone for a month, and it's okay. But for those of you who really need a workable phone for the next month, bring spare devices. Really bring spare devices if you're gonna install beta software. And in addition to that, I've got my Mac, of course, pre-partitioned so that I can install beta software without having to carry two Macs. Yeah.
So smart. I need to do that today.
Put that on your list. It's a good one.
Yep.
I think old friend of the show and former iMore writer, Peter Cohen, gave me that tip, and I love it. And in addition to that, I have a little tiny Zoom mic that I carry around in case we're going to do any on-the-spot audio or podcasts. I feel like it has saved my bacon numerous times, and I'm really, really grateful that it exists. And in addition to that, I just have a couple, I basically bring all of the connectors I think I might need for my MacBook and for my iPad, because you never know when you want to present something, especially during WWDC. And I have a fair amount of meetings with various developers, and whether for apps or games or little dongles, and it's nice to have kind of flexibility for presentation and availability and all of that. But I do carry pretty light, I despite the fact that I am taking my MacBook and my 10.5-inch iPad Pro. Aside from that and the dongles, I'm not really packing anything crazy. I know Renee is carrying a little bit more heavy this year because he decided to bring his video rig. So he has his a couple of Micro Four Thirds cameras, and he's basically a walking steal from me sign sometimes. There used to be. Yeah, so the genesis behind that story, I just have to go on a tangent real quick, is way back a couple years ago when WWDC was still held in San Francisco. There's a great friend of Apple and an all-around awesome person named Merlin Mann, who's been on a ton of podcasts, and he made a joke, I think my first or second WWDC. He's like, how do the people around Market Street know how to rob people? And he's like, it's because they're still wearing their freaking developer badges around the around the arena. It's like anybody wearing one of those badges is probably carrying $4,000 worth of stuff. And it's sad but true. So use that as also a PSA. If Apple decides to hand out badges this year, as opposed to just having it on your phone, put those away when you go eat. San Jose is a pretty safe place, but it's just for your own.
Don't look like a rookie.
No, exactly. This is your first WWDC, make it nice for yourself. And yeah, I generally stick to just one bag when I'm traveling at WWDC. And of course, can't forget, I will be bringing my roller skates because San Jose, there's quite a lot of the conference itself is kind of in one place, but there are so many alternative events and meetings and things like that are going on this week that kind of gets spread out within 20 block radius of San Jose. And so I brought my skates last year and I used them to get around, and I loved it so much that I'm going to do the same thing again this year.
Yeah, you should have seen me constantly trying to keep up with Serenity as she's skating down the street.
Yeah, I'll get you. Maybe bring a skateboard this time, Lori. I'll put you we'll make a tug system and just
that's
you're missing makeup.
Yeah, so I wish. If we both were just sort of on either side of you and go.
It's like a reverse sled dog.
Yeah. Oh dear, that's hilarious. Or maybe you could just give Lori should bring skates and you can give some quick lessons.
Yeah, I know how to roller skate. It's just been a while.
Bring your skates. We can be the skating team. Honestly, I will. Great. I'll put this out there. Anybody listening to the iMore show who's going to WWDC, if you want roller skating lessons, I will give them to you. You just
nice.
There you go.
I love it.
That's exciting. Find the person that has the free roller skating lessons on the back of their shirt instead of
yeah, right. It's like free hugs,
but better.
Yeah. But with wheels. Lori,
will work for app development.
Pretty much. Lori, tell me about your gear bag. What are you bringing? Because it's your second WWDC.
This will be my. Let's see. Definitely my third. It's my third. Yeah.
Okay, third.
I'm trying to remember which ones were Apple events and which ones were WWDC, but it's my third WWDC. So.
Okay.
I've got it pretty well established now. I bring a regular bag for my personal belongings. I don't have to travel by air, so I can, my baggage is much easier to deal with than if you had to take a plane.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And then in my gear bag, the stuff that I'm gonna actually bring with me to cover this stuff, the WWDC, I'll have my MacBook Pro 13-inch, which will now be partitioned so that I can sideload the beta on it, which thank you very much for that suggestion, Serenity. I'm actually bringing my 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I don't have a reason why I'm bringing the bigger one. I just want to. So I'm bringing the bigger one instead of mine's the 9.7. I have the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, but I'm bringing the 12.9 because it's bigger, and I just want to do that just because I like to remote share screens with my Mac and my iPad. It just gives me more room to be working, and everything is all spread out, and that feels better to me. So I like that. I'm also bringing an extra phone so that I can load the beta onto the phone. My Apple Watch is actually Apple Watch Zero, my spare. So I'm not going to bring that because I don't, even if it does work on the Series Zero, it may not work well. So there's really no point. And Serenity's going to have her Apple Watch, and I'm sure Renee's going to have an Apple Watch too that he'll load it on. So I can just kind of ask you two questions about it. I bring a reporter's notebook with me all the time because those things are amazing. You can hold them in your hand like this. I don't know where I put mine right now, but you can hold them in your hand like this so that when you're writing, you're actually, you can use one hand to hold a pad and one hand to write with. I've had them for years and I love them. So I always bring one. Rarely use it, but I always bring one just in case, because if you're going to interview someone and you want to take notes while you're talking to them, it's a really great thing to have. And lots and lots of cables. And I'm actually going to be bringing my super awesome, the Mophie charging brick. And here's why I'm bringing this one. This is amazing. I can plug my Mac into it. This thing has its own wall plug. You don't have to plug it into the wall. You can plug it into this brick. And I've brought it with me before, and it works amazing. And the charges last a really long time. So it's big and it's heavy, but it's worth it. And I'm sure that there's going to be times, I can remember multiple times when we would be nowhere near plugs and like finding walls on the ground and plugging in just so that we can charge up. So this is going to keep that from happening. So
I totally forgot that I am bringing that one as well, because it is seriously saved my bacon so many times. And I'm also bringing it plugged in over there, so I can't show it off. But it's it's Elevation Labs Battery Pro, which is it's a little battery charger. It wouldn't juice up your phone more than twice, but what it is, Apple Watch charger built into the brick, and then it has like the elastic that attaches to the Apple Watch, so you can click it in and then just have it on the go, and it's not going to fall off of its charger. I use that one while I'm traveling all the time, and I can juice up that battery from my Mophie. So it's really nice as opposed to having to worry about the extra cord.
Yeah, that's great. I think I remember you having that one before, so it does look like it's really cool. I haven't got one yet. I should.
Well, and especially if you're installing betas on those things, those betas will suck the juice right out of everything. So it's good to have that as backup. I'm curious if any of you are going to be bringing, I'm trying to find it now and I'm missing it. Hold on. If any of you are going to be bringing the new watch strap style thing from Ilago that lets you strap your AirPods to your wrist.
What? That sounds cool.
Oh no, it's
not.
No,
it's not. No. Sorry, Ilago. I love Ilago's little baby Mac stand. Like I will be the first to say that they make some cool products. But this is not I don't understand the point of it. Other than, okay, so here's where I see that it could potentially, it's basically a little clip where you can just shimmy your AirPods in on the side of your Apple Watch. I suppose I can see this interesting if you're one of those people who's like taking conference calls or something along those lines, and you're walking around. Because I've had moments where like I take one AirPod out when I'm like going to get coffee, and I'll put it in my pocket for a second. But I don't know. I feel, I like my Looney's case so much, and that I can also clip to my jeans. And I'm kind of like, I would prefer to put the AirPod back somewhere where it gets charged and doesn't have the possibility of falling off my wrist or
So I will link it in the show notes, but I wrote this article that was titled "This Wristband Lets You Strap Your AirPods to Your Wrist for Some Reason." And I wrote this article very, very sarcastically because I do feel I don't even know who asked for this. Because they talk about how it's the reason to have this is like if you're doing a workout, then you can store your AirPods on your wrist while you're working out, or if you run out of battery, then you can store your AirPods on your wrist. In both of those situations, with the battery low, you should put them back in the case so they can charge. And when you're working out, Alago actually makes these really awesome things called ear pads that connect to the AirPods and keep them in your ears so that you could work out with your AirPods. So there are just a lot of other options rather than this interesting. I'm just going to say that this interesting wrist device. When you buy it, it comes with this little, I can't remember what I called it, a detachable silicone dealie that actually has these little holes in it that you slide the AirPods into. But it also comes with a wristband that you can put on your wrist, and it looks just like an Apple Watch wristband. But the one sort of cool thing about it is that little detachable silicone dealie is about the size of an Apple Watch band. So you can slide it onto your Apple Watch. And if for some reason you find that you'd rather store your AirPods outside of your case and want them on your wrist, hanging there like the dead pieces of tech meat that they are, then go ahead. You could do that. Sorry, Alago. Again, you do make some really cool products. And in fact, in the article, I was like, why not try out these other products from Alago that actually make sense and would work great for you?
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to plugging the best thing ever for your AirPods, which is the Looney's case, because it's fantastic.
One too. Yep. I absolutely love my Looney's case.
It's so good. And it's like, then you can just clip this little thing anywhere, and then you have them in the case.
Leather too.
Yeah. You know what? All right. I am using this thing for what, a year now at this point? Because I think I got it right before Dub. And literally, I've used this almost every day hanging from my belt. And it's pretty much like the only thing, like it's still the only thing that I've noticed is there's a little bit of fabric that's coming out of this leather loop, but I don't actually think it does anything. I think it's just excess padding so that this doesn't wear down too much. But like you can see this, like for $10, this was the best $10 purchase on Amazon that I made.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've had mine for about as long as you have, and it hangs from my fanny pack, which I literally wear constantly. It's as if it were my purse, but it's my fanny pack. So it hangs from my fanny pack. It's my Looney's case is with me literally everywhere I go all the time. I sit in the dirt, whatever. It just dangles, and it doesn't matter. And I haven't even had the material dangle that you have. It's just perfect. So yeah. It's great. I love it.
Awesome. Well, that about wraps up things for WWDC until actual WWDC takes place. Stay posted to iMore's site, of course, where we're going to be covering everything on the day of. Follow all three of the boots on the ground people, that's Serenity, Lori, and Renee on Twitter and elsewhere to stay up and stay posted with that. Before we move on to the next topic, I do want to tell you all, and Lori, get ready, about our friends at Thrifter, because as you know, it's a way to save money on gadgets and home goods and so much more by shopping based on value and not hype. If you sign up at thrifter.com, you're going to get thoughtfully selected deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy daily. It's all the stuff and none of the fluff. And Lori's going to share some of that stuff with you right now.
Ready.
Oh, she's not ready.
I didn't get there. So I cleared my cache, so it took longer for the site to load just now. Okay, so I'm just going to do this quickly. Okay, so on Thrifter, you can get the Anchor USB-C to HDMI cable so that you can plug your computer into your television set or your computer or something like that and turn your small screen into your big screen and watch all of your movies that you have stored on your computer. So it's normally $23.99 and it's only $16 right now. And it's a little dongle. I know how we all feel about dongles, but you know, if you have a MacBook Pro, then you have to have a dongle, right? And it's super cheap. So it's a nice little deal. I think that's a really good price for that. And you know, $16 isn't going to break the bank or anything. If you end up not using it, at least you have it in case you do in the future.
There you go. So check out Thrifter. I mean, we go there all the time and end up spending money on stuff that we probably don't need to, but hey, we're happy after we get those cool new things with great deals. Thrifter's also on the lookout for new stuff that's coming, and so you can always sort of be up to date whenever Lego is releasing a special edition of something, or Nintendo has a new game coming, or what have you. So it's got all those updates. It's always keeping an eye on things. And again, it's a way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods. It's shopping based on value and not hype. You can get all the stuff and none of the fluff by signing up at thrifter.com. Thank you so much to Thrifter for sponsoring this episode of the iMore Show. Let's talk about rumors of Lori's favorite phone.
So there's been a lot of talk that the second generation iPhone SE, that's the 4-inch form factor phone that, oh yeah, I do have them here. This is my fave. Look at this beauty. For those of you watching, not listening, it's beautiful. And I'm just excited at the concept of it, another generation being made. But there's now these rumors coming out that are saying, no, it's going to be edge-to-edge screen display. There's going to be a notch. Is the newest rumor is that Sonny Dixon, who actually does get some pretty legit stuff I've seen in the past, that he'll, you know, get a part from a supplier and it actually ends up being, no, that's real. So I don't know. Sometimes it's not though. So, you know, you kind of take it all with a grain of salt, but he posted a picture of 4-inch form factor notches, screens, which would imply that Apple is going to make an edge-to-edge 4-inch iPhone, the iPhone SE 2. I don't know. I'm excited if that's real.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
we talked about this before, what would make an iPhone SE phone really awesome. And that idea of having just, I think it's such a great form factor, and combining that with this, you know, better screen and everything I would start recommend, like for me, I still don't know if that would be my phone, other than like in my museum that I totally don't have of iPhones or something. But I
so
like
shiny
family members who all have very tiny hands in comparison to my monster hands. I could see using that device. And if it's a more sort of, you know, budget conscious device, then that as well. So I think that this would be really awesome, but I'm curious, like, yes, we can talk about rumors, but how real do we actually think this is?
I used to think that this was a complete pipe dream, but these little bits of rumors, which might also just be feeding into the pipe dream more and more. I don't know. Some of these little things that are coming out seem like maybe my hopes are too high. Serenity, do you think it's a complete joke, or do you think there's actually a possibility?
I don't think it's a complete joke at all. I think that there's a huge popularity for that form factor. I mean, there's a reason, like SE is still selling. It's still making up, you know, maybe not a huge chunk of Apple's phone sales. But I mean, the company has gone on record saying they were surprised by the amount of demand when they originally released the SE. My concerns, I think, and my questions about going forward with this is, do you want the edge-to-edge screen, or do you want the cameras? Because I don't think you can have both. Like that's where I go down to it, where I'm thinking, like, if I want a small phone, I think that I probably want I want the best cameras I can in a tiny phone, and maybe I don't care so much about the screen because it's already so small, right? Where I'm like, well, if I want the best screen, I'm going to get the bigger model, like the iPhone 10. But at the same time, I don't know. That's where I'd pause a bit at these rumors, because I just don't see, like, I don't see Apple not shipping a good camera system in the SE. Like, maybe I could ship, if there's a new SE, they could ship like the iPhone 8's camera system. But we're so, like, we've seen what Google's been able to do with the Pixel 2 and their dual, their portrait mode with just a single lens. And I have to imagine that Apple is working on something to allow portrait mode and portrait lighting for the smaller phone for this year. So I'm curious. I'm like, will that fall down to the iPhone 9, or will that also, trickle down to something like an SE2? And if it's still, if all of the phones can use portrait except the SE model, I think that would be a real shame, because the more I use portrait, the better it's gotten, and it's really is a really cool feature that Apple provides. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my divide on it. I think it's plausible, but I think there are going to have to be some trade-offs, and I don't know whether we'll actually like what the trade-offs are.
So you think that there's if they were going to use the technology that would allow for edge-to-edge screen, there's no room in the guts to put in the, say, Face ID camera,
well, I think the Face ID, yeah, I think the TrueDepth, if it's going to be an edge-to-edge screen and they're going to take out the home button, unless they perfect the embedded fingerprint technology, they're going to have to put in the Face ID camera, which means I don't think there will be room for this architecture in the back. I mean, I don't expect the SE to ever get a dual camera system, but even a single camera system would be a little bit tricky. And I said, I think they could probably put the iPhone 8's internals plus a Face ID, maybe a Face ID, but also think about how expensive that might be, right? Or one of the benefits to the SE model is not only that it's small, but also that it's inexpensive. It's a really nice kind of starter model for people who want an iPhone, but don't necessarily have the pocket money to spend on, an 8 Plus or a 10. So they could they could make a 4-inch phone that was top of the line and amazing, and they could miniaturize architecture and do these amazing, great things. But what would that cost?
That's one of the reasons I think these SE rumors, these like iPhone 10 SE rumors are wrong, because a lot of people get the SE because of the price. It's the entry-level phone, and you can't do all this technology and keep it at $350. That's just impossible. I mean, even if you pushed the price to $400, that's still not enough for the amount of technology going into it. That's like on an SE, that's $600 or $700 worth of technology. So I completely agree with the price. I don't think Apple would do something like ruin your sort of low cost iPhone market. That's all they have for the low cost iPhone is the SE, and for that level of low cost SE is the SE. And to take that away from people, you're going to lose a lot of, teenagers whose parents can't afford an $800 phone, or adults who don't really need all that extra stuff. They just want something simple. They can't take that away. That low cost phone is a really important category, I think.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to, we also have to look at what Apple's going to do for the phone line going forward this year, right? Where there's been a lot of discussion about what the iPhone 9/10i 11 might show up, and whether Apple's going to continue kind of schisming the product lines, or whether it's going to try and do keep the iPhone 10 model as the latest and greatest, then have the regular iPhone models. But if the regular iPhone models trickle down to all edge-to-edge screens, then again, you wind up with the same question about the SE, where it's like, is the SE going to remain the ugly, the redhead stepchild that still has a button? It's sorry, redheads.
Apologies to any redheaded stepchild.
Yeah. but no, I think it's a valid question, and I think we'll have to wait and see what Apple and Johnny Sarugi and his chip team have in their minds with miniaturization, because miniaturization, it's not really going to work unless they find a way to cost effectively miniaturize the parts they're going to need.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move on to talk about something that, Lori, I know you've been testing quite a bit. That is AirPlay 2 launching on iOS and sort of across the platform. And that means dual HomePod use. What's that all about? Can you tell us more about that?
Yep. So just what it sounds like, AirPlay 2, which we've been waiting for a year almost now, has finally launched, and it makes it possible for you to connect two devices and use them in tandem as if they're one. At the moment, the only thing that AirPlay 2 is compatible with is HomePod, and that's not Apple's fault. That's other manufacturers are just kind of like, oh, it's out, so we got to get our stuff updated. I'm sure very soon a lot of these companies are going to be on board, but for now, it's just HomePod. So I can't speak to what third-party speakers can do with AirPlay 2, but I can tell you what it's like to have two HomePods in the house connected with AirPlay 2, and it is amazing. What you do is you set up in the Home app, you set up two HomePods as one room. So when you're using Siri to call out stuff, it does it from one speaker for both speakers. So if you say, you tell Siri to start playing a playlist, one of the speakers responds to make that happen for both of those speakers. That's when they're connected with stereo pairing. Sorry, I should actually clarify. There's two different ways to do this. There's stereo pairing, and there's just the general AirPlay 2 connection, which allows for multi-room connection. So you don't have to have your HomePods in the same room. So what I was just referring to with two HomePods in the same room and one Siri responding, that's actually with stereo pairing. If you have them in separate rooms, you can use either Siri, whichever one you're closest to will be the one that responds. And you can not only just have Siri play music from all of your HomePods. If you have 5 of them all over your house, you can tell Siri to play them in all 5 of your speakers. Or in the same breath, you can tell Siri to play one song from the HomePod in your living room, and a different song from the HomePod in your bedroom, and a different song from the HomePod in your kitchen. Or you can have it play on just one of the HomePods, or you can have it play on just 2 of the HomePods, but not all 5 of them. It's amazing. You just, as long as when you set up your HomePods, you identify them very easily, so that when you're telling the HomePod, when you're telling Siri what you want the HomePod to do, you verbally know how to identify them separately, whether it's HomePod 1, HomePod 2, HomePod 3, or if it's the location being living room, kitchen, bedroom. All you got to do is make sure that when you're naming your HomePods, that they're easily identifiable in separate locations or as separate names, so that when you tell Siri what to do, it knows how to find them and how to access them. But it is amazing. And I am all in on Apple TV in my house, and I did not have a soundbar before. I was using the audio from my television set. So as the preface, let me talk a little bit about two HomePods used in stereo pairing with your Apple TV. It's amazing. With one, it was already fantastic. I already thought it was a huge improvement over just having my television speakers. So for somebody like me who didn't already have a soundbar, it's absolutely the best, a huge upgrade and wonderful. Having two, the one thing I can say is it increased the volume in the house, or in the room with the television in it, but not too much. It's a weird thing. You can't play music from your television too loud with HomePod. You can't crank it up to 80. It just doesn't do that. Its max level is always like a legitimate level that doesn't blow out the speakers. I don't know if that's my TV or if that's Apple putting those conditions in the HomePod so that it doesn't blow the HomePod speakers. I'd like to think that it was Apple's choice to do something so smart, because it really is nice to not accidentally turn your TV up too loud and then have everything sound bad. But even without being able to like overload the volume in your house, just having two HomePods paired in stereo in your living room, watching a television show or a movie there's this experience that goes so much deeper than just any kind of general living room experience. And remember, I've never had a soundbar, so I'm not making a comparison to Sonos here. This is just my experience with using 2 HomePods versus using 1 HomePod. I watched The Last Jedi, and every time there was a rumble of the ship, I could like feel it in my chest, not physically vibrating, just feel this sort of like heaviness of the rumble or an explosion. And it's not a loud sound. It's just like a deep resonance that kind of I've only ever experienced from watching movies in theaters that have really good audio sounds. There's one scene in Last Jedi that I don't want to give too many spoilers with, but there's a lot of echo in the room, and Rey does this thing where she snaps her finger, and because of the echo, it kind of like you're supposed to kind of understand that it's flowing through this like long, echoey room. And you can tell that one HomePod starts the echo, and then it reverberates over to the second HomePod. So from left to right, it's amazing.
Wow.
Now I want a second HomePod.
It's so cool.
Damn it.
Let's go. Our second HomePod. Oh no.
Yeah. And I did find a couple of songs. I was using Apple Music because, I'm trying to test it all out and see how it works. And I did find a couple of songs that actually use left-right channels for like separating audio. Most people now, most producers and engineers have things playing through both speakers. So you have to actually find those ones that actually put something on the left channel and something different on the right channel to really, really hone in on those different sounds. And I did find it, and it is really cool to hear something playing out of the left speaker and something else playing out of the right speaker on a song, the way it was intended.
Speaking to the bass, so I don't have 2, but I have 1, and the television that I have in my living room, it's getting to be about time to upgrade. It's a 1080p television, and I've had it for several years now, and I would keep it around. Like I don't care that much about 4K and HDR and all that jazz. However, these speakers in it are starting to go out, and so now whenever it plays certain things, it makes this horrible sound, like with the bass, the way that it rattles in place it's not good. And so I was showing someone Beyonce's Lemonade, the actual visual album, and not just listening to it. And there are some very bassy parts in that music video or music motion. I don't even know what to call it. It's this really long, like, it's great. Anyway, the point is there's a lot of bass that comes in throughout, and that horrible sound was happening. And I was like, listen, I am stopping this. I'm going and getting my HomePod and bringing it in here. I'm, airplaying to it, and we're starting over. And we did. And it was the best choice that I made, because when the bass was rattling, yes, you can feel it. And that was just with 1 even. So I can't imagine what 2 feels like. And honestly, for me, I'm curious, because I didn't, other than like me purposely sitting this down and saying, I can, this is the one thing that I'm going to play on this and it's going to be fine. I tried using my HomePod, just the singular one, as an external speaker for my television for everything. And I had lots of sync issues and things taking forever to load and all this kind of stuff. Did that improve with AirPlay 2 and with the introduction of stereo pairing?
So I didn't have issues with things taking time to load. So that one I can't speak to because I didn't have that experience myself. But what my problem has always been is that my HomePod would disconnect from Apple TV, and not because I used it with something else, because like I said, it's my stereo for my television. So I don't often switch over to Apple Music on it, or even ask Siri to do something. It's usually just sits there dark until I turn on the television, and then it plays music. And it would disconnect from my Apple TV a lot, like every day, sometimes multiple times per day if I turn off the TV. I didn't understand why. There shouldn't be a reason, but I was constantly having to kind of like swipe down, access the audio, move over, click on the HomePod so that it would trigger the audio again. And I haven't had to do that yet with it stereo pairing, which might not be stereo pairing's fault, but it might be that AirPlay or HomePod 11.4, the update that you need to be able to use AirPlay, there might have been sort of some sort of stabilization in it that helped with that. And again, it's only been a few days, so I can't even say for sure that it's fixed forever. I can definitely say that since I got my second HomePod on Tuesday and updated all of my software to 11.4, it hasn't done that. So
Nice.
that's good, right?
Yeah, that's good, right? Yes, that's very good. That's
so
awesome.
I think that problem is fixed. And I'm not going to say, so if somebody, sends me a message and says it's not fixed, it's still broken on mine, I'm sorry. I've only had a couple of days with it, and it might still unsync. We'll see. I feel like I still need like a month before I can say for sure that it fixed the problem. So Micah, I think to your point, it's possible, and maybe you can test this yourself by connecting your HomePod to your television again and see what happens. It's possible that HomePod operating system 11.4 actually fixed some of the minor stability issues with Apple TV that had been there previously.
That would be excellent. Fingers crossed. I want to quickly talk about, I've got some contacts out to the various other companies that are making AirPlay 2, are adding AirPlay 2 support to their speakers or are making them new. I've heard back from B&O. B&O says AirPlay 2 will be available to both new and older Bang & Olufsen and B&O Play speakers as an over-the-air update during August and September of this year. Libertone says the software update for our Zip speaker will be out in a couple weeks. Then you're all good to go and can use AirPlay 2 with your Zip. And then Sonos says, we don't have a date to share today about when AirPlay 2 will be supported on Sonos, but stay tuned.
Jerks.
So, no, yeah, they're not saying, but Libertone says a couple weeks and B&O Play says August or September. Waiting to hear back from the others. There aren't many others who make like just speakers. It's a lot of receivers and things like that, and amplifiers and those kinds of deals. So those are the main ones that sort of have standalone devices that are going to work with AirPlay 2. So we'll see when the rest of those come and how it works there. But I think all the more possibilities for using AirPlay is nice. And I love Airfoil to do AirPlay stuff.
Oh yeah, that's I've been using Airfoil all along, just because you don't need AirPlay 2. You
Right.
didn't need AirPlay 2 to use it. It works really well. You do have to sort of manually get those two separate speakers to sync up, but it works really good once you get that sync in there.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a really nice in between. And also you don't have to wait for all of the other speakers to support AirPlay 2, which is great.
Yeah.
Because right now there is Apple released a list of quite a long list of speakers that support AirPlay 2, except support with an asterisk because none of them have actually released software updates yet.
Yep. So that's where we are in terms of those firmware updates, and hopefully those other companies get back to me. But hopefully the 2 weeks, or rather the August and September, are the longest ones, and that the 2 weeks is more common because that's forever away. Dear AirPlay 2 speaker makers, come on. So that wraps things up for AirPlay 2. Lori, do you want to talk about Oculus Go, or do we want to talk about Nintendo's new? Oh, let's talk about Nintendo's new Pokemon games.
Oh
yeah.
God. Okay.
Okay,
it never ends.
So this is not Pokemon Go for anybody who's just about to shut off the podcast right now. It's not Pokemon Go. It's not about Pokemon Go. If you like Pokemon and don't like Pokemon Go, keep listening because there is legit Pokemon happening. Yeah. So Nintendo just kind of sprung on us a press conference or a gaming announcement that they are indeed making a couple of Pokemon games available this year. One of them is already available. One of them is coming in November. And one of them is actually not coming until 2019. So first, Pokemon Quest. It's a free-to-play game. It's just a little bitty bouncing around. You're sort of controlling the Pokemon instead of playing a character. I actually haven't had a chance to play it yet because this week has been so crazy. So I don't know all the details about how to play the game or what it means exactly, but it's within the world of Pokemon. It's using sort of the idea and the concept of the Pokemon Yellow, which came out in 1998. So you're in the Kanto region, and you're meeting a lot of the other Pokemon that kind of come from the Kanto region. You're also block shaped. So all of the Pokemon are blocky. They're little blocky Pokemon. I know some people have actually complained about that, but I think it's adorable. They're just these adorable little like geometric shaped little Bulbasaurs, and it's just awesome. So I'm all in on the blocky shapes of the Pokemons for Pokemon Quest. It is a free to play game, and you will get ways to pay money, microtransactions for these games to get outfits for your Pokemon, and I can't remember. I started playing and I'm trying to remember all the details of it. I think there's little customizations that you can use the money for. I don't believe you have to use money to continue playing the game, and I don't believe that there is a time paywall, which to me is the worst way to play a free game, when you're in the middle of a quest and you can't go on because you don't have enough energy, and you have to either wait for your energy or pay to get energy. To me, that's the worst free to play version. I don't think that the Pokemon Quest is like that, but don't quote me on that. Again, I opened the game, I ran around with my little Pikachu, I attacked a couple other Pokemon, and then I fell asleep because it was midnight and I was exhausted. So I haven't had a chance to actually get into the game. The second game is called Pokemon Let's Go. There are two different versions of Pokemon Let's Go. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, which I have already pre-ordered Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu.
Not Eevee?
I started playing the games on day one when Pokemon came out. So my heart belongs to Pikachu. There are lots of other much more adorable Pokemon out there, but I don't know. I can't let go of my love of Pikachu. He's the reason I started playing the game, started watching the cartoon. So I can't give up on my Pikachu. He's too cute. Pokemon Let's Go has not come out yet, but it is. And I was a little confused at first because I did think that this was one of the core RPG games, but it turns out that it's not. It's more like a side game, and a core game in this series. If you don't really understand, that means that it's kind of following the path of the trainers and the other characters that have happened all along, even though you're in completely different locations. The games will often reference other games in existence to kind of bring the world together. So people who have been playing core series games kind of know from beginning to end. It's not entirely unlike playing fantasy, Final Fantasy, and that like the stories, though you can play them separate, they all kind of intertwine. So if it's not a core game, it's still Pokemon related. And this one is an RPG, even though it's technically not a core game. I think it's because we're going back in time. I believe that I don't have all the details. You can't play this game yet. So if I'm not mistaken, you're going back in time to around 1998 when Pokemon Yellow came out. It takes place in the Kanto region again. Some people who already know about Pokemon Let's Go are going to say that it looks like it's just Pokemon Go but bigger. It's not. The only thing that's Pokemon Go related that has that vibe is that the mechanics for catching a Pokemon are almost identical to the mechanics for catching a Pokemon in Pokemon Go. And that means when you see a Pokemon, you click on it or you tap on it or you push a button or however that's going to work in Nintendo Switch. And then a screen appears that shows you the Pokemon in front of you. You're now in first person perspective. And there's a Pokeball in front of you. And in the game, in the Switch game, you'll be able to use your controller to flick. And that's like throwing a Pokeball at the Pokemon. So they're using just that game mechanic. It's not going to be this thing where you have to physically wander around your city to catch Pokemon. It's not only catching Pokemon. There is elements to the game that are RPG where you wander around as your little character and you go through, you know, tall grasses and mountainsides, and you go into cities and you go in the shops and things like that. All of the other elements of a Pokemon RPG are in there, but the game, the catch mechanics are the one thing that are different than your standard Pokemon game, and that are more similar to Pokemon Go, which actually is pretty cool. I like that you can physically use your controller. It seems pretty fun and interactive to do something like that. And on that note, one more thing. They also announced the Pokeball Plus, which is a game controller for Nintendo Switch that will replace that Joy-Con that you use to catch Pokemon. It looks like a little Pokeball.
Oh my God.
It has all of the joystick and button mechanics of your Joy-Con. It has the motion sensors and the vibration, just like your Joy-Con, but it looks like a Pokeball.
I'm going to sob. This is so perfect.
It's so, everything 13-year-old me ever wanted.
It's so cute. My eyes are starting to water right now.
I know, mine too. Why does? Oh my gosh, so cool.
It's really cute, and so it will be, if you decide, you don't need it, but if you decide and you want it,
I do need it.
You can use it to play Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu or Pokemon Let's Go Eevee on your Nintendo Switch. You cannot at this time use it to play any other games, but hopefully they'll change that. I'm hoping that they'll make some changes to the firmware somewhere and allow you to just use it as a controller, because that would be really fun. But for now, it's only for Pokemon Let's Go. But here's the thing. It also works with Pokemon Go, the game. So on your phone, if you want to play Pokemon Go using this Pokeball Plus joystick or Switch controller, you can do that. It works the same way as Pokemon Go Plus, that little wrist controller that they put out last spring, let's say. I can't remember exactly when it was. So if you already have a Pokemon Go Plus, you don't need this unless you just want it because it's a cute Pokeball. But it acts the same way. It's a step tracker. It has a button on it that lets you catch Pokemon and lets you spin Pokestops and the gyms. So it's a great little addition to your Pokemon Go interaction if that's something that you're interested in too. But again, we're not here for Pokemon Go. We're here for other Pokemon. And it's awesome and cute and wonderful. And it comes out November 16th, along with the Pokemon Let's Go games on November 16th.
Did you mention if you shake it, it makes the sounds of the Pokemon inside?
Oh, I totally forgot. You're right. In Pokemon Let's Go, you can transfer one of your Pokemon into the ball and take the ball with you so that it will make sounds and rattle when you roll it around or play it or pet it. It makes the sound of the Pokemon that you captured. So if you capture a Pikachu, it'll make Pikachu's not the cartoon sound, but the game sound. They kind of have these little like sort of digital sounds, and it'll make those sounds so that you can have your Pokemon with you in its ball and carry it around. So yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Fun fact, Lori was the voice actor for the Pokemon Let's Go sounds.
That's excellent.
Well, we are just about out of time, actually. I think we might we'll have to save the Oculus Go conversation till a little bit later, maybe in the interim, because I'm sure next week we'll be talking about everything that we saw at WWDC. But in the interim, maybe we're going to get we'll convince Serenity to get an Oculus Go, and then we can all meet in virtual space and play some games so we can all talk about it.
Can we film a podcast in virtual space?
That would be interesting.
Right?
You know,
would be fun.
Stream
We can stream it. Yeah, you can stream it to Facebook. So we might.
So maybe if we sit in front of our microphones and just hit the record button and strap on our things, then we can stream it to Facebook.
Yeah, it'd be really so weird. It would be so weird.
It would be really weird.
We should experiment with that.
Okay.
In the meantime, it is time for us to wrap up. Of course, I want to thank everybody for listening. If you are looking for, if Renee, let me try this again. So it's time for us to say goodbye. I want to thank everybody for listening. If Renee were here, he would tell you that you could find him at Renee Ritchie on Twitter, and also at Vector. It's vector.show for all the awesome stuff that he's doing there with videos and podcasts, etc. Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Apaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. They can find me at Laura Gill at most other social things. And they can find me at WWDC, where I will be schmoozing it up with celebrities like Renee Ritchie and Serenity Caldwell.
Excellent. Serenity Caldwell, if people are looking for you and want to follow you for the WWDC fun, where can they find you?
You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Settern, SETTERN, as well as on iMore.com and in person. Probably, if you look for somebody on quad roller skates, it's probably me.
Awesome. Too cool. If you're looking for me online, you can find me at Micah Sargent, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where there are links to all the different things I do. You can find us all at the iMore show. That is what this is.
You can't find us there. Yes. That is true.
You can find us all at imore.com. I want to thank Jim Metzendorf so much for doing a great job making us sound fantastic by editing the show every week. We will be back next week to talk about WWDC and all the fun stuff that was announced there. Until then, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend or week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.